I was under the kitchen sink, wrestling with a stubborn pipe joint, when my wife Olivia decided to detonate our marriage like a hand grenade at Sunday dinner. The wrench slipped, barking my knuckles against the cabinet frame, and I muttered a curse that would have made my old boxing coach proud. "Michael, are you going to fix that thing or just swear at it all night?" Olivia's voice carried that particular edge she'd perfected over our 15 years of marriage, sharp enough to cut glass, cold enough to freeze hell. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I slid out from under the sink, wiping my hands on a dish towel that had seen better decades. My parents sat at our dining room table, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Dad picked at his meatloaf while Mom made small talk about the weather, both of them walking on eggshells around their daughter-in-law. "Just about done," I said, tightening the joint one more time. "Should hold for another few years." "Unlike some things around here," Olivia muttered, not quite under her breath. I'd been hearing comments like that for months now. Little digs, casual cruelty disguised as jokes, the slow erosion of respect that happens when someone's already checked out of a marriage but hasn't bothered to pack their bags yet. My mother, bless her heart, tried to fill the silence. "The meatloaf is delicious, Olivia. You'll have to give me the recipe." "I didn't make it," Olivia replied curtly, stabbing her salad with unnecessary force. "Michael picked it up from the deli. I've been too busy with actual important work to play housewife." Dad's fork paused halfway to his mouth. In their generation, you didn't air your dirty laundry in front of company, even if that company was family. But Olivia had never been one for old-fashioned courtesy. I sat down at the table, studying my wife's face. 39 years old, still beautiful in that sharp, professional way that had first caught my attention at a real estate conference. But somewhere along the line, that sharpness had turned inward, cutting at everything around her. "So, how's business, honey?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "That new development downtown keeping you busy?" Her laugh was bitter. "You mean the one where I actually have to work with competent people?" "Yes, it's been refreshing." My parents exchanged a look. Dad cleared his throat. "Well, we should probably head home soon. Early morning tomorrow." "Actually," Olivia said, setting down her fork with deliberate precision, "this is perfect timing. I've been meaning to have this conversation." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. I'd heard that voice before, in boardrooms when she was about to close a deal, in arguments when she'd already decided she'd won. "Olivia," I started, but she held up a hand. "No, Michael. I'm done pretending everything's fine. I'm done smiling and playing happy family when I'm miserable." She turned to my parents, her voice taking on that fake sweet tone she used with difficult clients. "Frank, Margaret, I'm sorry you have to hear this, but I want a divorce." The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Mom's face went pale. Dad set down his fork and stared at his plate, and I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not surprise exactly, but a kind of grim confirmation. "I see," I said quietly. "And you thought Sunday dinner with my parents was the appropriate venue for this announcement?" "Why not? They're part of the problem." Olivia's mask was sliding off now, revealing the anger underneath. 15 years of family dinners where I have to pretend I care about your mother's garden club and your father's fishing stories. 15 years of being treated like an outsider in my own marriage because I didn't grow up in this suffocating little bubble you call a family. Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Olivia, we never meant—" "Save it, Margaret. You've made it clear from day one that I wasn't good enough for your precious boy. Too ambitious, too focused on my career, too unwilling to pop out grandchildren and bake cookies. That's enough." My voice came out harder than I'd intended. "You want to blow up our marriage? Fine. but you don't get to take shots at my parents while you do it." Olivia laughed, a sound like breaking glass. There it is, the real Michael, always protecting mommy and daddy, never standing up for his wife. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Then I hit speaker and set the phone on the table. "What are you doing?" Olivia asked, her confidence wavering slightly. The phone rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. "Patterson Law Office, this is Bill." "Hey Bill, it's Michael Chen. Sorry, Michael Thompson." I caught myself before using the fake name I'd been thinking about earlier. "I know it's Sunday evening, but I need to discuss divorce proceedings. My wife just informed me she wants to end our marriage." Silence around the table. Olivia's face had gone white, then red, then white again. "Jesus, Mike!" Bill's voice crackled through the speaker. "I'm sorry to hear that. You want to come in first thing Monday morning?" "That would be perfect. And Bill, I'm going to need someone who specializes in protecting business assets. I have a feeling this is going to get complicated." I ended the call and looked around the table. My parents sat frozen, unsure whether to stay or go. Olivia stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You snake," she whispered. "You were ready for this." "I've been ready for months," I replied calmly. "Ever since you started coming home late from client meetings with Trevor Blackwood." The name hit her like a physical blow. Trevor, her co-worker at Sterling Realty, the golden boy with the perfect smile and the BMW that cost more than most people's houses. I'd known about their little affair for 6 weeks now, ever since I'd seen them together at the Riverside Hotel downtown. "I don't know what you think you saw," she started. "Room 237, Tuesday nights, charged to the company credit card." I kept my voice conversational, like we were discussing the weather. "The same room every week for 2 months. Either you're having an affair, or you've developed a very expensive sleeping disorder." My mother gasped. Dad pushed back from the table, his face hard with disgust. "We should go," Mom said quietly. "No." I stood up, suddenly feeling more clear-headed than I had in months. "You should finish your dinner. Olivia's the one who wanted to have this conversation in front of family. Let her explain to you how she's been screwing her coworker while I've been fixing sinks and paying mortgages." Olivia shot to her feet, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You sanctimonious bastard! You think you're so perfect? You think I don't know about your little trips to that disgusting boxing gym? Coming home with bruises and pretending it's stress relief?" "At least when I hit something, it hits back," I said. "More honest than what you've been doing." She grabbed her purse from the counter, her hands shaking with rage. "Fine. You want a war? You've got one, but don't think this is going to go the way you planned." "Olivia," I called as she headed for the door. "You might want to think carefully about how you handle this. I've been doing the books for your real estate deals for 5 years. I know exactly where every commission check went, every expense account charge, every little creative accounting trick you've pulled." She froze in the doorway, her back still turned to us. "Sleep well," I added. "Tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day." The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat back down at the table and picked up my fork, cutting off a piece of meatloaf like nothing had happened. "Well," I said to my stunned parents, "anyone want dessert?" I spent Monday morning at Bill Patterson's law office, a cramped space above a sandwich shop that smelled like pastrami and old coffee. Bill looked like a bulldog in a cheap suit, but he was the best divorce attorney in the county, with a reputation for protecting his clients' assets like a pit bull guarding a bone. "So let me get this straight," Bill said, leaning back in his creaky chair. "Your wife's been having an affair with her coworker and you've got documentation?" I slid a manila folder across his desk. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, phone records showing calls at all hours, plus photos. Bill flipped through the papers, his eyebrows climbing toward his receding hairline. "Jesus, Mike. She wasn't exactly subtle about it, was she?" "Trevor's not the brightest bulb in the chandelier," I said. "All flash, no substance. The kind of guy who thinks expensive cologne can substitute for personality. And your business? Thompson Accounting Services? Incorporated 5 years ago, all assets properly documented. But here's the thing, Bill. I've been handling Olivia's real estate transactions as her accountant. There are some irregularities in her commission reporting that might interest the IRS. Bill's grin was predatory. What kind of irregularities? The kind where she's been skimming money from joint deals with other agents, reporting lower commissions than she actually received. Nothing criminal, but definitely grounds for professional sanctions, and it would void her partnership agreement with Sterling Realty. Meaning? Meaning she'd lose her job, her client list, and her reputation in one fell swoop. I leaned forward. I want to be clear, Bill. I'm not looking to destroy her out of spite, but if she tries to take half my business or comes after my parents' property, I'm prepared to defend myself. Bill nodded approvingly. Smart man. Most guys in your situation are too emotional to think strategically. You want to file first? Already drafted the papers last night, I said, pulling out another folder. Irreconcilable differences, division of assets, no alimony, clean and simple. What about your daughter? That was the part that kept me awake at night. Sophie was 17, a senior in high school, caught between two parents who were about to tear each other apart. Joint custody until she turns 18 in 6 months. After that, it's her choice. Bill spent the next hour walking me through the process, explaining timelines and procedures. By the time I left his office, the divorce papers were filed, and Olivia would be served by the end of the day. I drove across town to Ray's boxing gym, a converted warehouse that smelled like sweat, leather, and honest work. Ray Kowalski had been my best friend since high school, a former Golden Gloves champion who'd turned his passion into a business training fighters and weekend warriors like me. You look like hell, Ray said when I walked in. He was wrapping the hands of a young kid who couldn't have been more than 20, all elbows and determination. Feel worse than I look, I replied, grabbing my gear from the locker. Olivia and I are done. Ray sent the kid off to work the heavy bag and turned his full attention to me. About damn time. That woman's been poisoned for years. Yeah, well, it's about to get ugly. She's not going to go quietly. Good thing you've been keeping up with your training, then. Ray grinned, tossing me a pair of gloves. Nothing like hitting something to clear your head. I spent the next hour working out my frustrations on the heavy bag, feeling my knuckles sting through the padding, sweat burning my eyes. It was honest pain, clean and simple, nothing like the twisted emotional games Olivia had been playing. My phone buzzed as I was cooling down. A text from an unknown number. Your wife got served an hour ago. She's not taking it well. Thought you should know. Bill. I was toweling off when my phone rang. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. Hello, sweetheart, I answered. How was your day? You bastard! Her voice was shrill with rage. You had me served at work, in front of my clients. I didn't choose the timing, I said calmly. That's just when the process server found you. This is harassment. I'm calling my lawyer. Good idea. You're going to need one. I paused, letting the silence stretch. By the way, you might want to check your partnership agreement with Sterling. There's a morality clause that covers extramarital affairs with co-workers. The line went quiet for a long moment. You wouldn't, she whispered. Try me. I hung up and turned to Ray, who'd been listening with undisguised amusement. Damn, Mike. Remind me never to get on your bad side. This is just the opening bell, I said. Round 1 of what's going to be a very long fight. That evening, I sat in my kitchen, our kitchen for now, eating leftover Chinese takeout and planning my next moves. The house felt different already, like a weight had been lifted from the rafters. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending everything was fine. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from Sophie. Mom says you're trying to ruin her life. Is that true? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. I'm trying to protect mine. There's a difference. Can we talk tomorrow? After school? Of course. I love you, kiddo. Love you too, Dad. I set the phone aside and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where I'd lived for 8 years. Modest houses with small yards, working-class families who minded their own business and helped their neighbors when needed. It wasn't flashy or impressive, but it was real. Olivia had always hated this place, always pushing me to move somewhere more upscale, more befitting her image as a successful real estate agent. But I'd grown up in neighborhoods like this, where people worked hard and treated each other with respect. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. Olivia would regroup, hire her own lawyer, start fighting back with everything she had. She'd try to paint me as the villain, the controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife's success. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me, assumed I was the same pushover who'd been letting her walk all over him for years. She had no idea that I'd been quietly documenting everything, preparing for this moment, building an unassailable position. In boxing, Ray always said, "The fight isn't won by the strongest puncher or the fastest fighter. It's won by the one who thinks 3 moves ahead, who stays calm under pressure, who waits for the perfect opening." Olivia had just given me mine. Sophie came by after school the next day, her face a mask of teenage confusion and barely contained anger. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same spot where Olivia had dropped her bombshell 3 days earlier. "Mom says you've been spying on her," Sophie said without preamble. "She says you hired a private detective and you're trying to steal all her money." I set down my coffee cup and studied my daughter's face. She had Olivia's sharp features but my brown eyes, and right now those eyes were filled with pain and disappointment. "Your mother's been having an affair with Trevor Blackwood for the past 3 months," I said quietly. "I found out by accident when I saw them together at a hotel downtown. I didn't hire anyone. I just started paying attention." Sophie's face crumpled. "She said you were lying about that." "I have photos, honey. Credit card receipts. Phone records. I'm not proud of collecting evidence against my own wife, but I had to protect myself." "Why didn't you just talk to her? Try to work it out?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Because she didn't want to work it out. She wanted out of the marriage and she was planning to take as much as she could when she left. Sophie was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. "My friends at school are already talking about it. Madison's mom works at Sterling Realty, and she heard Mom screaming at her boss yesterday." "I'm sorry you have to deal with this," I said. "I know it's not fair to you." "Are you really going to try to get her fired?" I chose my words carefully. I'm going to protect what I've worked for. If your mother had been honest about wanting a divorce, we could have handled this quietly. But she chose to have an affair and then ambush me in front of my parents. Actions have consequences. Sophie looked up at me with those serious eyes. "She's still my mom, Dad." "I know, and I would never try to turn you against her, but I won't let her destroy me either." After Sophie left, I drove to Ray's gym for my usual evening workout. The place was busier than normal, filled with the after-work crowd trying to sweat out their daily frustrations. I was wrapping my hands when I noticed Tommy Morrison, one of the regulars, giving me odd looks. "Something on your mind, Tommy?" I asked. Tommy was a good guy, a plumber who'd been coming to the gym for years. But he looked uncomfortable, like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Look, Mike, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but my wife works with your wife's cousin at the bank. Word's getting around that you're being pretty rough on Olivia." I finished wrapping my left hand before responding. "What exactly is the word?" "That you're trying to ruin her career over a misunderstanding. That you're being vindictive because she wants to better herself." I felt a familiar cold anger settling in my chest. Olivia was already working the social network, spinning the story to make herself the victim. "Tommy," I said carefully, "did this story mention that Olivia's been screwing her co-worker for 3 months? Or that she announced she wanted a divorce in front of my elderly parents at Sunday dinner?" Tommy's face flushed red. No, that's not what I heard. Funny how that part got left out. I pulled on my gloves. Tell your wife she might want to get the whole story before she starts spreading gossip. I worked the heavy bag harder than usual that night, my mind racing through the implications. Olivia was playing the long game, trying to turn our mutual friends and acquaintances against me before I could tell my side of the story. Two could play that game. The next morning, I stopped by Murphy's Diner, the local breakfast spot where half the town conducted business over coffee and eggs. I made sure to sit at the counter where everyone could see me, ordered my usual, and waited. It didn't take long. Within 10 minutes, 3 different people had come over to offer their condolences about my situation with Olivia. Each conversation followed the same pattern, awkward sympathy mixed with barely concealed curiosity about the details. It's tough, I told each of them. Finding out your wife's been cheating is hard enough, but when she's doing it with a coworker and using company resources to pay for hotel rooms, well, it makes you question everything you thought you knew about a person. By the time I finished my eggs, half the diner had heard some version of the story. The truth has a way of spreading faster than lies, especially when it's juicier. My phone rang as I was walking to my car. Bill Patterson's name flashed on the screen. "We've got a problem," he said without preamble. "Olivia hired Jessica Chen from the Hartwell firm." I whistled low. Jessica Chen was the most expensive divorce attorney in the state, known for her scorched earth tactics and her ability to find money her clients didn't know they had. "She's also filed a countersuit," Bill continued, "claiming emotional abuse, financial control, and demanding spousal support." "On what grounds?" "She says you've been systematically isolating her from friends and family, controlling her access to money, and threatening her career. She wants half your business, the house, and $3,000 a month in alimony." I laughed, a sound without humor. "She's good, I'll give her that. Turn everything around and make me the villain." "It gets better. She's also claiming that your evidence of the affair was obtained through illegal surveillance and should be thrown out." "Can she do that?" "She can try, but hotel receipts and phone records are pretty hard to dismiss. Still, this is going to get expensive and ugly." I hung up and sat in my car for a moment, watching the morning traffic flow past Murphy's Diner. Olivia had just escalated the conflict to nuclear levels, bringing in the biggest gun she could find and making claims that could destroy my reputation even if they couldn't be proven. But she'd also made another mistake. By going for maximum damage right out of the gate, she'd revealed her strategy. She wasn't interested in a fair settlement. She wanted to crush me completely. That changed the rules of engagement. I drove to my office and spent the morning making phone calls. By lunchtime, I had appointments with 3 of Olivia's biggest clients, ostensibly to discuss their tax situations, but really to plant seeds of doubt about her professional ethics. If Olivia wanted to play dirty, I was prepared to show her just how dirty things could get. The confrontation I'd been dreading came on Friday night at Brennan's Pub, the local watering hole where our old crowd gathered every week. I'd been avoiding the place since the divorce started, but Ray convinced me it was time to face the music. "You can't hide forever," he said as we walked through the door. "Besides, these people have known you for years. They'll see through Olivia's bullshit." I wasn't so sure. The moment we walked in, I could feel the shift in atmosphere. Conversations paused, heads turned, and I saw the look I'd been expecting, the mixture of pity and judgment that people reserve for friends going through messy divorces. Our usual table in the back was occupied by the regular crew, Dave and Linda Martinez, who owned the local hardware store, Jeff and Carol Peterson, both teachers at the high school, and Mark Sullivan, who ran the town's only bookstore. These were people I'd known for a decade, friends who'd been to my house for barbecues and birthday parties. But tonight, they looked at me like I was a stranger. "Mike," Dave said carefully as we approached, "how are you holding up?" "I've been better," I replied, pulling out a chair. "But I'm managing." Linda leaned forward, her voice dropping to that concerned whisper people use when discussing tragedy. "We heard about what happened. I'm so sorry you're going through this." "Thanks. It's been a rough week." Jeff cleared his throat. "Look, Mike, we've all known you and Olivia for years. This whole situation, it just doesn't seem like something she would do." I felt Ray tense beside me. "What exactly are you saying, Jeff?" "I'm saying maybe there's more to this story than we're hearing. Olivia's been telling people that Mike's been controlling and possessive for years, that he's been monitoring her phone calls and following her around." The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a cigarette. I took a sip of my beer, buying time to control my temper. "Is that what you think, Jeff? That I've been stalking my own wife?" Carol jumped in, her teacher's voice taking on that patronizing tone she used with difficult students. "We're not taking sides, Mike, but you have to admit, the way you're handling this divorce, it seems pretty vindictive." "Vindictive how?" "Going after her job," Mark said, "trying to get her fired over what might have been a misunderstanding." I set down my beer and looked around the table. These people had been my friends for years, but they were looking at me like I was the villain in this story. "A misunderstanding," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling adultery now?" Dave shifted uncomfortably. "Look, Mike, marriages are complicated. Maybe Olivia made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you have to destroy her career over it." "And maybe," I said, my voice getting harder, "you don't know what the hell you're talking about." The table went quiet. Ray put a warning hand on my arm, but I was past caring about diplomacy. "You want to know about vindictive?" I continued. "Olivia announced she wanted a divorce in front of my 70-year-old parents at Sunday dinner. She's been screwing her co-worker for months and charging the hotel rooms to her company credit card. She hired the most expensive lawyer in the state and is demanding half my business plus alimony. But somehow I'm the bad guy for defending myself." Linda's face flushed. "You don't have to get nasty about it." "Nasty?" I laughed, a bitter sound. "You haven't seen nasty yet. You people have known me for 10 years. You've been in my home, eaten my food, celebrated holidays with my family, but the moment my marriage falls apart, you automatically assume I must be the problem." "That's not fair," Carol protested. "We're just trying to understand." "No, you're not. You're choosing sides based on gossip and half-truths." "Well, here's the truth. I have photos of my wife coming out of that hotel with Trevor Blackwood. I have credit card receipts showing she's been spending company money on their little rendezvous. I have phone records showing calls between them at all hours of the night." Jeff held up his hands. "Okay, maybe she made some bad choices, but that doesn't mean you have to be vindictive about it." There's that word again. Vindictive. I stood up, pulling out my wallet. "You know what's vindictive? Cheating on your husband and then trying to take half his business. You know what's vindictive? Turning mutual friends against him by playing the victim." I threw a 20 on the table. "Enjoy your drinks, and the next time you want to have a discussion about my marriage, make sure you know what you're talking about first." Ray followed me out of the bar, catching up as I reached my truck. "That went well," he said dryly. "Screw them," I muttered, fumbling with my keys. 10 years of friendship down the drain because Olivia's a better liar than I am. They'll come around when they realize what really happened. Will they? Or will they just write me off as another bitter ex-husband who couldn't handle his wife's success? Ray was quiet for a moment. "You know what your problem is, Mike. You're fighting fair in a dirty fight. Olivia's out there spinning stories, playing the victim, making you look like the bad guy. Meanwhile, you're trying to take the high road. What's the alternative? Start spreading gossip like a high school kid? The alternative is showing people who she really is, instead of just telling them." I looked at my friend, seeing something calculating in his expression. "What are you thinking?" Ray grinned, the same look he used to get before a big fight. "I'm thinking it's time to stop playing defense and start throwing some punches of our own. Such as letting Olivia show everyone her true colors. Sometimes the best way to expose a liar is to give them enough rope to hang themselves. I thought about that as I drove home to my empty house. Ray was right. I'd been reacting to Olivia's moves instead of making my own. I'd been so focused on protecting myself legally that I'd forgotten about the court of public opinion. But that was about to change. Olivia wanted to play games with our mutual friends? Fine. I'd show her how games were really played. 2 weeks later, I got the break I'd been waiting for. Sophie called me at work, her voice tight with embarrassment and anger. "Dad, you need to know something. Mom and Trevor, they're planning something." "What kind of something?" "I heard them talking last night. They think they've found a way to prove you've been harassing them. They're going to meet at some warehouse tonight to set up the evidence." "What warehouse?" "The old Patterson place down by the river. Dad, I think they're going to try to frame you for something." I thanked Sophie and immediately called Bill Patterson. Within an hour, we had a plan that would either clear my name once and for all or land me in jail. "This is risky as hell," Bill warned. "If you're wrong about what they're planning—" "I'm not wrong. Olivia's getting desperate, and desperate people make stupid choices." That evening, I parked my truck a quarter-mile from the old Patterson warehouse, a crumbling brick building that had been abandoned for years. Ray sat beside me, a digital camera in his lap and a grim expression on his face. "You sure about this?" he asked. "As sure as I can be. If they're planning to frame me for harassment or stalking, I need evidence of the setup." We made our way through the tall grass and rusted machinery that surrounded the building. The place looked like something out of a horror movie, all broken windows and graffitied walls. Perfect for whatever scheme Olivia and Trevor had cooked up. I heard voices coming from inside the building and motioned for Ray to follow me to a broken window where we could see and hear what was happening. Olivia stood in the middle of the warehouse floor, her expensive suit looking out of place in the industrial decay. Trevor was with her, along with someone I didn't recognize, a thin man with a camera who looked nervous about the whole situation. "This better work," Trevor was saying. "If we get caught—" "We won't get caught," Olivia snapped. "Michael's too predictable. He'll come here looking for us, and when he does, Danny will get pictures of him stalking us. Then we'll have proof for the restraining order." My stomach clenched. A restraining order would destroy my reputation and give Olivia a huge advantage in the divorce proceedings. "What if he doesn't show up?" the photographer asked. "He'll show up," Olivia said with certainty. "I left enough clues for that little brat Sophie to find. She'll run straight to Daddy like she always does." The casual cruelty in her voice when talking about our daughter made my hands clench into fists. Ray put a restraining hand on my arm. "How do you know he's not already here?" Trevor asked, looking around nervously. "This place gives me the creeps." "Because Michael's not smart enough to think that far ahead," Olivia replied. "He's a simple man with simple thoughts. He'll come charging in here like some kind of white knight and we'll have him." That's when I stepped through the broken doorway, Ray right behind me with the camera rolling. "You're right about one thing, Olivia," I said calmly. "I am predictable. Predictably tired of your bullshit." All three of them spun around, shock and fear written across their faces. Trevor actually took a step backward, stumbling over a piece of debris. "Michael!" Olivia recovered first, her voice taking on that fake sweet tone. "What are you doing here?" "Watching you try to frame me for stalking," I replied. "Nice plan, by the way. Very creative." The photographer, Danny, was already backing toward the exit. "I'm out of here. This is crazy." "Danny, wait!" Olivia called, but he was already gone, leaving just the four of us in the echoing warehouse. Trevor tried to salvage the situation. "Look, Mike, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like my cheating wife and her boyfriend are trying to set me up for harassment charges," I said. "Ray, please tell me you got all of that on camera." Ray grinned. "Every word. This is going to make great evidence in court." Olivia's composure finally cracked. "You snake. You can't use that. It's entrapment. Actually, it's just good planning. You see, unlike you, I don't break the law to get what I want. I just wait for you to break it yourself. Trevor stepped forward, trying to look threatening. You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, this isn't over. We'll find another way to... I moved faster than he expected, closing the distance between us in 3 steps. My boxing training kicked in, and I had him backed against a concrete pillar before he could finish his sentence. Listen to me very carefully, Trevor, I said quietly. You're going to walk out of here, get in your fancy car, and drive away. You're going to stop seeing my wife, stop taking her calls, and find yourself a new job in another city. Because if I see you anywhere near my family again, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. Trevor's face had gone pale. Up close, he was smaller than he looked, all flash and no substance. You're threatening me. That's assault. No, that's a promise. And unlike your girlfriend here, I keep my promises. I stepped back, and Trevor practically ran for the exit, his expensive shoes slipping on the dusty concrete floor. That left just Olivia, Ray, and me in the cavernous space. My wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, stood in the middle of the warehouse looking like a queen whose kingdom had just collapsed around her. This isn't over, Michael, she said, her voice shaking with rage. You think you've won, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I do, I replied. I've been married to you for 15 years. I know exactly what you're capable of. The question is, do you know what I'm capable of? She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Maybe fear, maybe respect, maybe just the recognition that she'd finally pushed too far. Come on, Ray, I said. Let's go home. As we walked toward the exit, I heard Olivia call out behind us. You'll regret this, Michael. You'll regret all of it. The only thing I regret, I called back without turning around, is not doing this sooner. The video Ray shot at the warehouse changed everything. Within 48 hours, Bill Patterson had filed motions to dismiss all of Olivia's counterclaims and submitted the recording as evidence of her attempt to fabricate harassment charges. Jessica Chen, Olivia's expensive lawyer, found herself in the uncomfortable position of defending the indefensible. But I wasn't done yet. On Monday morning, I walked into Sterling Realty's downtown office, carrying a manila folder and wearing my best suit. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley who'd always been friendly to me at company parties, looked nervous when she saw me. Hi, Mr. Thompson. I'm not sure Mrs. Thompson is available. I'm not here to see Olivia, I said calmly. I need to speak with Richard Sterling. Richard Sterling was the company's founder, a man in his 60s who'd built the business from nothing and prided himself on running an ethical operation. He was also, I happen to know, a deacon at the Methodist Church and a stickler for moral behavior. Ashley buzzed his office, and within minutes I was sitting across from Sterling in his wood-paneled office, the manila folder on the desk between us. Michael, Sterling said carefully, I want you to know how sorry I am about your situation with Olivia. These things are always difficult. Thank you, Richard, but I'm not here about the divorce. I'm here about company policy. I opened the folder and spread out the hotel receipts, credit card statements, and phone records I'd been collecting for months. Your employee handbook has a clear policy about personal relationships between co-workers, I continued. It also has specific rules about using company resources for personal expenses. Sterling's face went pale as he looked through the documents. Jesus Christ, Michael, how long has this been going on? 3 months that I can prove, possibly longer. And Trevor knows about this? He's been participating in it. In fact, he's the one who's been authorizing the credit card charges. Sterling sat back in his chair, looking like a man who'd just been handed a live grenade. What do you want me to do with this information? That's entirely up to you, Richard. I'm just fulfilling my obligation as a concerned citizen to report potential fraud to the appropriate authorities. This could destroy both their careers. Yes, I said simply. It could. Sterling was quiet for a long moment, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. Finally, he looked up at me with something that might have been respect. I'll handle this internally, he said. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I left the Sterling Realty office feeling lighter than I had in months. By the end of the week, both Olivia and Trevor had been terminated for violating company policy. Trevor had also been reported to the State Real Estate Commission for ethics violations, effectively ending his career in the industry. But the best part came 3 days later, when Sophie called me with news that made everything worthwhile. Dad, you need to hear this. Mom came by the house last night, crying and begging me to talk to you. She wants to settle the divorce quietly. What did you tell her? I told her she should have thought about that before she cheated on you and tried to frame you for stalking. Sophie's voice was proud and angry. I also told her I'd be living with you after graduation. That evening, I met with Bill Patterson and Jessica Chen in a conference room at the courthouse. Olivia sat beside her lawyer looking like a broken woman, her perfect hair disheveled, her expensive clothes wrinkled, her confidence completely shattered. My client would like to propose a settlement, Jessica said without preamble. I leaned back in my chair and waited. Mrs. Thompson will accept an even division of marital assets, with no claim on your business or request for alimony. In exchange, you agree not to pursue any further legal action related to her employment or professional conduct. Counteroffer, I said. Olivia gets 20% of the house value, her car, and her personal belongings. I keep the business, the house, and my retirement accounts. No alimony either direction. Jessica started to object, but Olivia put a hand on her arm. What about the other evidence? The video from the warehouse? Sealed by the court and never mentioned again, assuming you abide by the settlement terms. Olivia looked at me across the table, and I saw the moment she realized she'd lost completely. Fine, I accept. The papers were signed that afternoon. After 15 years of marriage, it was over in less than an hour. As we walked out of the courthouse, Olivia caught up with me on the steps. I hope you're happy, she said bitterly. You destroyed my career, turned my own daughter against me, and left me with nothing. I stopped and turned to face her. Olivia, I didn't destroy your career. You did that when you started sleeping with your co-worker and using company money to pay for hotel rooms. I didn't turn Sophie against you. You did that when you called her a little brat and used her to set up your fake stalking scheme. And I didn't leave you with nothing. You left yourself with nothing when you decided that a quick thrill was worth more than 15 years of marriage. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. I loved you once. I know, I said quietly. I loved you too. But love isn't enough when one person decides to become someone else entirely. I walked away then, leaving her standing on the courthouse steps. I didn't look back,